Hey folks, Brady Crash here to talk about universal background checks and what they're actually going to lead to. I'm getting kind of sick and tired of my legislators talking about how universal background checks is the middle ground in the gun control debate. Now somehow universal background checks are going to solve any of the problems. I don't want to regurgitate things that are being said by people on both sides talking about how Adam Lanza would not have been able to it wouldn't have affected his assault, his murders without universal background checks. I realize that no one's stupid and realize, hey, this guy was going to get the gun anyway. Criminals will get the guns anyway. What I want to talk about is how universal background checks will lead to gun registration and later to confiscation. Anybody who pushes legislation will deny that that's the case. They'll say there's no way, we're just trying to prevent criminals from getting guns. Okay, like I said before, first off, criminals do not use registries to get guns. They do not register their weapons. They steal them, they trade them, they buy them in a black market. That's how they get guns. Registration does not affect these men. The reason I explain why UBC, I'm so appalled by UBC and how anybody on either side would even remotely believe this is a good idea, is because the premise behind it requires us to give up more freedom. They say, no, all we're going to do is this UBC will prevent the sale of illegal transfer of weapons from one person to another. So they're saying, instead of just going to a FFL or a gun shop and purchasing a firearm, you will, even if you did a private transfer between you and a buddy, you and a family member, if I want to transfer a weapon to my son, I'd have to actually go through an FFL to do so. Fill out the 4473, the form, the background check form, call the NICS database to verify it was done. Well, see, the problem with this is we haven't had to do that with private transfers. Never had to. Private to private transfers are not, you do not require a background check. So the problem with the whole UBC, or Universal Background Check, reasoning is that the only way that UBC would work, since the government has no idea what weapons have been transferred privately over the decades we've had before this obscene legislation came forward, is that they would have to register every firearm you own. So the only way for the UBC system to work is for you to register every firearm you own. And they won't say it now. Of course they won't, because nobody would follow that. Nobody wants to be caught dead. Every legislator knows that they would lose their job. So they wrap up the universal background check and saying it's just to prevent crime. It's just to make sure that no guns are transferred illegally, or that criminals don't get guns and they can't get guns to commit heinous crimes. Whatever. The only way for the system to work is to have national registry, so they can record every private gun initially, so then they can track the transfer. And then I said, well, registration leads to confiscation. Not in the United States, never in a million years. I'm sure that's what the British thought. I'm sure that's what the Canadians thought. And I'm sure that's what the Australians thought. But I'm actually going to talk about the Canadians specifically. They are the best example in recent history about confiscation. And in fact, the Canadians, a journalist, actually issued a dire warning to the United States citizens saying registration will lead to confiscation. It happened in Canada. And then there was such a blowback from registration of long guns, rifles, bolt-action rifles, that actually the Parliament decided, ooh, we're going to hold off on this because we want to keep our jobs. You have to fight this. UBCs may seem benign. They're wrapping it up in a very benign package to make it seem like this is just a simple, middle-of-the-road solution to help fight gun crime. It will do nothing for crime. The criminals either already have their gun or they're going to steal it from legal gun owners. All this will do will lead to a national registry. It's the only way they can do it to track every firearm, so the actual premise behind the UBC will work. And then later on, confiscation. Because bear in mind, once a law is passed, you can amend it all you want. Oh, let's decide universal background checks. Universal. I mean, they can look at anything. Right now, they probably just look at criminal records or medical records. But the thing is, when they get medical records, they can just amend, oh, well, you're not crazy now, but 20 years ago, you were on Prozac. 20 years ago, you had a mental breakdown. You had to go see a psychiatrist. Oh, well, now we're going to say that anybody who's ever had any mental problems is going to have their guns taken away. They could do that. Or, as of right now, most people would like to ban so-called assault weapons, actually modern sporting rifles or black rifles, but the misnomer of assault weapons, what have you, or handguns, and they'll say we're going to ban those. But then all of a sudden they decide to amend it. You know what? Now we want to ban bolt-action rifles because now they're going to call them sniper rifles because they'd be used for distance shooting. Because you put a scope on them, it makes them more dangerous. So they'll start banning those. Or shotguns. Now no one would ban a shotgun. Wait, police and military can use the breach rooms and take out militants or take out suspects. So people have them, they can do the same thing. It's just like an assault weapon. We have to ban those. These things get slipped in. Even when you think that UBC is a benign solution, a middle-of-the-road compromise, I am telling you, it is not. The only way for it to function the way that these people that push it want it to function is for, next, a registry to happen. And if that registry happens, that registry will take not just your background information about criminal pasts, that the NICS already does, and if it doesn't, it's because the states fail, but also look at your medical records and any other records that they want to take. Not to mention, then being in a federal database, your personal information could be subject to Freedom of Information Act requests. Isn't that just dandy? We saw how well that went over in New York when that journal decided to publish all the names of individuals who had weapons. Assault weapons, as they said. Handguns. It's disgusting. Do not let this happen in the United States. If you don't care, don't listen. You want to have them take your freedom away, that's fine. I will not sit still and do it, and I encourage you to take action against it. Fight universal background checks, because the real meaning is what happens after the bill is passed. That's all I've got to say.